Welcome back. Today we're looking at material covering the immediate aftermath of that UPS MD-11 crash near Louisville International.
Right. And it really captures that initial chaos, the flood of information you get in these situations. A good job pulling data together quickly.
Definitely.
But now the task is to shape it, right? Move from just compiling facts to building, well, a really clear and impactful narrative. So maybe let's jump right into the structure first.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay. The sequence of information delivery currently disrupts the reader's ability to form a cohesive timeline of events and responses.
Yeah, I see that. The weakness, I think, stems from how breaking news often gets assembled. You've got these rapid shifts, right, between very specific technical details, then political statements, Governor Beshear, Mayor Greenberg, and then suddenly context, like the plane being a 34-year-old MD-11.
Exactly. It's fragmented. And while that mirrors the real-time confusion, for someone reading it later, it's just, well, confusing. They're trying to piece together what happened versus how people reacted.
Like the example you pointed out, the video showing fire on the wing. That visual is mentioned, but then the actual flight data, the altitude, the speed, it's somewhere else entirely.
Right. They need to be together. So the suggestion here is pretty straightforward. Resequence the whole thing into clearer blocks, thematic blocks and chronological ones.
Okay.
Think of it like chapters. First, the event. What happened, when, where, the visual evidence, the key technical numbers right then.
Got it? The crash itself.
Then Chapter 2, the immediate response. All the official actions, shelter in place, road closures, police statements, everything.
And finally?
The context and investigation. Aircraft history, initial thoughts on cause, the NTSB taking over, event, response, context, clean.
Okay. I see the logic for clarity, but doesn't consolidating all the response stuff, like the shelter in place and the governor's first words, into one block maybe lose some of that initial frantic feeling? That sort of jumbled nature did reflect the reality on the ground, didn't it?
That's a fair point. It does. But remember, the goal now isn't really to replicate a live feed. It's to provide a clear, understandable account after the dust is settled a bit. By grouping the response actions, we actually give a stronger sense of the scale of the official reaction.
Okay.
It moves the reader from "this terrible thing happened" to "and this is how the authorities dealt with it." It shows the coordination or maybe even the initial confusion in the response, but all in one place.
Right. Shifting from just reporting moments to analyzing the phases. Okay, I get that distinction. So give me those concrete examples again, specifically for that event block. How do we make that seamless?
Okay, the absolute key is connecting the evidence. You have to link that visual observation with the hard data immediately. So, take the Flight Radar 24 data, the 175 feet altitude, 184 knot speed before it dropped.
Put that right next to the description of the WLKY video showing the fire on one wing. Right there, no gap.
Okay.
That way, the reader immediately sees fire visible, plane barely climbing, starts descending. It connects the what went wrong visually with the what went wrong technically. Much stronger.
Yeah, that definitely tightens it up. Physics meets visual right away.
Exactly. And then, for the response block, like we said, consolidate. All the official safety messages, the mayor saying don't touch debris, LMPD saying stay away, the shelter-in-place order.
They're scattered now, aren't they? Across different paragraphs?
Yeah, they are. Pull them all together. One section detailing the emergency response. It shows the scope of the public safety measures much more effectively than having them sprinkled throughout. You get a real sense of the city locking down.
Grouping them paints a single powerful picture of that immediate civic reaction. Okay, that makes sense. So we've got a clearer timeline for the event and the response. But that brings us, naturally, I think, to the trickiest part, the casualty reports.
Absolutely. That's our second big area, clarity around the victims. The initial fluctuating reports regarding fatalities and injuries are presented in a way that generates conceptual confusion about who died where, diminishing the immediate clarity of the tragedy.
This is so tough, because the report is factually right about what was said when, but that chronological accuracy makes the narrative itself unclear, especially reading it later. You have Governor Beshear saying at least 7 dead, 11 injured.
Right, that initial high number.
Then later, the mayor clarifies 4 confirmed dead were not on the plane, plus the 3 crew members feared dead. It's like whiplash for the reader trying to keep track.
And you can't expect the reader to constantly update their mental tally. It creates cognitive load right when you need clarity the most. So the suggestion is about framing. Use specific, controlled language.
How so?
Address the uncertainty directly. Establish the timeline of knowledge, not just the sequence of announcements. And the absolute must-do rule. Clearly separate ground casualties from aircraft occupants from the start.
Okay, framing is key. So how do we start that section? How do we manage the reader's expectation that these numbers were in flux?
Lead with the confirmed outcome, but acknowledge the initial reports. Something like, while initial reports, including one from Governor Beshear citing at least 7 fatalities, painted a grim early picture, the confirmed figures later focused on 4 individuals tragically killed on the ground near the impacted recycling center and auto parts shop.
Ah, okay, so you state the initial number, but immediately frame it as initial and pivot to the confirmed ground victims and their location. It acknowledges the early chaos, but anchors the reader in the known facts first.
Precisely. It tells them, okay, the first number was high, but this is what we know for sure about who died where on the ground.
But what about the impact of that first announcement? The governor saying 7 dead, that really set the tone for the emergency response, didn't it? Does framing it this way risk downplaying that critical moment?
Good question. No, you absolutely still include the governor's statement, but you frame its significance carefully. Maybe something like, the severity of the unfolding crisis was underscored early on when Governor Beshear announced preliminary reports suggested at least 7 fatalities. However, as rescue efforts continued, the focus of confirmed fatalities, see, you mention it, note its impact, but immediately signal that the numbers evolved.
Okay, so it's about using language that flags it as provisional, not erasing it. Got it. Keep the focus on confirmed reality while respecting the documented initial shock.
Exactly. And the other key example is about placement and contrast. The 3 crew members initially feared dead, make sure their status is discussed immediately alongside and contrasted with the confirmed ground casualties.
Not in separate paragraphs like it is now?
No, bring them together. The reader needs to understand simultaneously. Okay, 4 confirmed dead on the ground here, 3 crew members involved in the crash itself, their status initially unconfirmed. That clear separation, ground versus air, is crucial for both clarity and, frankly, respecting the different circumstances of the victims.
Right. Shifting from just relaying the discovery process to presenting the clarified result. Essential for summarizing tragedy respectfully. Okay, let's pivot then from the human cost to the technical side. The analysis, which is our third point.
Yes, and this connects back to that flight data. While the technical details provided by Flight Radar 24 are critically important, they currently function as isolated data points rather than being woven into the narrative as implied initial evidence of the failure.
Yeah, this feels like a missed opportunity, especially for an audience that probably understands aviation basics. The weakness is clear. The report states the plane hit 175 feet and reached a speed of 184 knots before making a sharp descent. But so what?
Exactly. It's just presented as a fact. There's no commentary explaining why those numbers are significant, why they scream problem immediately after takeoff, especially connected to that visual of fire. The reader is left hanging, trying to figure out if that's low or normal.
Which for a loaded MD-11 cargo plane, 175 feet is, well, it's basically nothing. It suggests an immediate severe performance issue right off the runway.
Precisely. So the suggestion is, use that data actively. Don't just list it, interpret it. Connect the altitude and speed directly to the likely failure point. Position that 175 feet number as the start of the investigative story, showing this wasn't a cruise altitude issue, it was an immediate, catastrophic loss of control barely off the ground.
Okay, so we need to inject that context, explain why 175 feet and 184 knots are so alarming for this aircraft in this phase of flight. We're basically turning the report from just what happened into the first steps of why it likely happened.
Yes, that's the transition. So, concrete steps?
Okay, first, when you mention the 175 feet and 184 knots, Immediately add the context and link it back to the video. Something like, Flight Radar 24 recorded the aircraft reaching a peak altitude of only 175 feet and a speed of 184 knots, critically low figures for this stage of flight before beginning its sharp descent. This struggle for altitude occurred moments after.
Video captured apparent fire on one wing, strongly suggesting an immediate link between the visible distress and the catastrophic loss of performance.
Perfect. It contextualizes the numbers and directly links the potential cause, fire, to the effect, failure to climb.
Right, makes the connection explicit. And the second part.
The other context mentioned the Boeing statement, the plane's age. Right now, they feel like standalone facts.
Yeah, they need to be woven together analytically. Don't just list Boeing commented and the plane was 34 years old. Link them. Suggest how they're relevant to the investigation.
How would you phrase that?
Maybe point towards the likely NTSB focus. Something like, the NTSB investigation is expected to closely examine how the specific failure observed the fire on the wing interacted with the known characteristics and operational history of this particular 34-year-old McDonnell Douglas MD-11 airframe. You could even add a nod to the MD-11's reputation, if appropriate for the tone.
Mentioning its handling characteristics, maybe, especially under asymmetric thrust or load?
Exactly. You're connecting the specific incident, fire, low altitude, to the broader context, aircraft type, age, known challenges. It tells the reader why these facts matter for figuring out the ultimate cause. It guides them towards the likely investigative path.
Yeah, it moves beyond just listing facts into offering an informed perspective on where the investigation will likely zero in. We're not saying the cause, but highlighting the key questions. That adds real value.
That's the goal. Giving the reader not just the what, but the so what and the what next.
Okay, so let's recap the main takeaways for strengthening this piece. First, streamline the flow. Move from fragmented reporting to clear blocks: event, response, context, investigation. Prioritize the event's chronology over the news discovery timeline.
Right. Second, tackle the casualty figures with careful framing. Lead with confirmed facts, clearly separate ground and air victims, and use language that acknowledges initial reports but emphasizes the clarified reality. Timeline of knowledge.
And third, leverage that technical data. Don't just state the 175 feet, 184 knots. Explain its significance. Link it directly to the visual evidence of fire, and use it along with the plane's age and type to frame the likely focus of the NTSB investigation.
Those three pillars, structure, casualty clarity, and analytical depth with the technical data, will really elevate this from a good compilation to a truly compelling and insightful account of the tragedy.
Excellent points. This gives a clear path forward. Keep up the great work, and we definitely look forward to seeing the revised piece once these refinements are in place.
Sounds good. Happy to look at it again.
Until next time.